photographed some girls as part of my Through the Window project. It seems they spent most of lockdown 1.0 painting their windows, something that was common in the UK. Rainbows everywhere to show solidarity with the National Health Service and to give us hope. At the same time, a few shots show the toll the lockdown was taking on the children. Days are long for young ones, months feel like years, and they miss their friends, their family and their freedom.
My name is Claire Batey. I have a business here in the UK called Unscripted Photography, and I specialise in primarily documentary photography across the board, whether it's families, commercial work or weddings. My biggest passion is photographing families, and I love nothing more than to spend an entire day with them from the moment they wake up to when they go to bed, just documenting every tiny little moment that ordinarily goes forgotten or missed. But in 20 years' time, we would love to go back and just relive it all again. So that's just kind of brought back the memory. Actually, I kind of forgotten about it. But Lily and I decided things had opened up a little bit more in the UK when this day happened. And I took her to the Sea Life Centre. It's not the biggest thing. It's certainly nothing like what you have in America. But there's, fish and there's lots of seals. We have a really lovely seal sanctuary on the Northumberland coast. The seals are pretty wild there. So we visited there, just Lily and I, and spent the morning looking at all the fish, watched all the baby seals. And then we went to have lunch at the local coffee shop and had a little walk down to the beach. And funny enough, one of my favourite memories of the day, and I wish I had this moment photographed, was Lily's first time witnessing a half-naked, quite nice-looking man running down the beach. And she was only 18 months, I think, at the time. So she wasn't, she didn't have many words, but she watched him, she stopped, she stared at him as she walked by, her eyes followed him, and she went, "Oh, nice." Like, that's my daughter. But we just had a lovely day. It wasn't particularly warm. We just spent the day kind of throwing stones into the sea. She dug some holes, made some sandcastles, and just started to enjoy our freedom that I suppose we all thought that we were going to have again. And then obviously, we got shut down. So little did we know that 2021 was just going to be a repeat again. I'm pretty sure we thought we were coming to the end of all of the lockdowns and the nonsense. We had no idea that it was going to kind of become like a yearly thing at Christmas. And obviously we've been quite lucky in the UK. We definitely haven't shut down as much as a lot of the other countries, but it's still been very frustrating. And I feel for my daughter that she's missed out on so much that my son had, especially from the social aspect of the early years. And she's been lucky that she's had her older brother to at least learn from and experience things with, like in the garden and so on. But there's so many other children who are perhaps first babies during lockdowns that have really led quite sheltered lives. And I fear for those guys when they go to preschools and kind of out into the big world, they're going to be a bit shocked. So yes, my love of photography really developed when Harry was born, and I just enjoyed not necessarily taking portraits or still photographs, more just him enjoying life and learning. It was all the little details, it was the relationships as they were growing between myself and my husband, watching him grow. And I was trying to document his life for myself because I knew how quickly it was going to go. And I think that's kind of, my friends noticed that I was taking photographs in a different way than what was at that point was quite traditional. You would take your child to a studio and have a portrait taken, and they would see that what I was trying to capture was more like memories. And I know in the States, this was 8 years ago. In America, there was quite a few family documentary photographers around at the time, but in the UK, it was really quite unheard of. There was a few down south, but certainly not up here where I live. So down south, it was starting to become not popular, but more people were, you know, understanding what it was. But up in the north, trying to explain to families, like I would come into your house and just document your day, and take, you know, just all of the what we take for granted, what we think is boring, but actually when you look back in 20 years, it's actually really exciting or interesting, or it's the moments that you really miss. So that's kind of how my business grew. And I enjoy it today. I spent a day, a couple of hours with a family, the 5 children, all homeschooled. So COVID meant no difference to them really, because they were homeschooled before then and they still homeschool now. But it was just interesting talking to a mother of 5 children who chooses to homeschool, whereas I, you know, felt quite pressured during the homeschooling period here in England. I can understand why she would want to do it. Compared with me, I was like, oh, you know, a couple of months was hard enough, especially with juggling work and things. But it was fascinating just watching her let things go, how her house was, how she managed 5 kids, how the husband was on board with it as well, completely supported her. But just, you know, going into people's houses and documenting their lives, and then obviously she'll get her gallery, and then that's today, you know, that's being encapsulated for her, and she'll be able to keep that forever as a little time capsule. It's quite precious.
Where do you think the best place for families and or moms to store all these images and organize all that information for their children?
I definitely don't think that people should keep their photographs in the digital world. One day I fear that a meteor is going to come and it's going to like suck all of the digital cloud away, and we'll be, you know, oh no, we've got nothing on our phone. So personally, I think even if you just print them and put them in a shoebox under the bed, you know, unless a fire or a flood hits, they're safe and they're going to get handed down for generations. But I think a photo book is probably the best way to immortalize anything. And you know, for our own generations, you know, you get, I think it's really lovely, you know, photographs get handed on and they become family heirlooms, whereas a photograph on a phone, you know, who's going to know your password, and who's going to, you know, is the phone really going to work, you know, in 10 years time, if it's the last phone you have when you die? That, you know, that doesn't mean anything when that gets passed down in a will. But the family, you know, the wedding albums, the family Christmas albums, if you're, you know, lucky enough to put an album together every year, that's priceless in my view. Even if you don't know who the people are, you know, if you just know that they're slightly related to you, that's nice enough. And I think that's where documentary.
Write anything on the back of it for metadata, anything to know what the date is? And
oh yeah, it's lovely. I mean, if you can put together like a photo book and then you write down some dates and things in it, that's great. Or yeah, if your grandparents wrote down the names of who the people are in the photos, that's just an added bonus, definitely. But I think one of the nice things about taking documentary photographs instead of just a standard portrait, you don't see who the person was. It's just them. Whereas if you take a photograph of, you know, like environmental portrait, you can really understand who the person was, and you could, you know, you put together a whole story about, you know, where they lived, what they did, how they felt in that moment. You know, somebody in a white studio, especially if they're wearing clothes that their mum chose for them or something, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't tell you any story really. I much prefer the, you know, the environmental portrait, or the in the moment photograph that really explains who they are, how they felt.
is there something emotional that happened to you that makes you feel so passionate about this?
I think probably just becoming a mother. I think I realized I didn't know I was going to have a second child. I thought I was only going to have one. And I very quickly realized after Harry was maybe 3 months old, I thought, blimey, this time was going so fast. And everyone always says that the days are really long, but the years are short. And it's so true. And all of a sudden, your baby is 8 years old and you think, wow, how did that happen? And I already regret not photographing certain things. And I just think everyone should be doing it. And I know it sounds crazy that you should document every moment of every day. And maybe I am more obscene than some people, but I know that in 20 years' time, to go through those photographs, to go through those videos will mean so much to me. And I also think that a lot of my own childhood memories, they're not necessarily really memories, they're memories that I've put together from the photographs that I've seen that my parents took. So that for me shows how strong photography and video is. And I kind of wish that there was more video of me as a kid, to hear my voice, to see how I walked, that sort of thing. Because photos tell you so much, but video in some ways can be much stronger.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that last episode and learned something new. Don't forget to tune in to the next episode to see what other crazy, incredible, creative, and empowering lessons you can learn from the photos in this book.